Well, Callum, we'll keep the remake train going. So the next thing we have here is a
Mm.
Resident Evil 3 remake reviews. I have the Metacritic pulled up. So yeah, it's coming out this Friday. The Metacritic so far right now is at an 80. It's got pretty positive reviews. There's some, they go dip below to the lower end and bring up some criticisms. I want to kind of pick apart some of these criticisms and we'll see what these outlets say. So I'll start with IGN here. Give it a 9 out of 10. They have a quote here: with a sublimely detailed world and breakneck survival horror gameplay, Resident Evil 3 is just as good as its 2019 predecessor. More, please. 85 from Easy Allies. Resident Evil 3 is a superb reimagining that complements last year's Resident Evil 2 by prioritizing frantic action without compromising its horror roots. We have Destructoid gives it an 80. The remake of Resident Evil 3 is going to be divisive, just as the original was. Now, you've brought this up before that the reviews seem to be going toe and toe with that original release of Resident Evil 3.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Push Square gives it a 70. Resident Evil 3 had the potential to better its classic predecessor, but a disappointing amount of cut content and the letdown that Nemesis is hold back from the greatness. The Verge gives it sort of a lower end review here. Almost everything it does right was part of Resident Evil 2 as well, and many of that game's qualities are no longer present. Overall, the package is a lot less appealing. It feels more like an expansion to 2 than an entirely new game. That doesn't mean it isn't worth playing, but it does mean you should know what you're getting into before pulling the trigger. So when you read some of this stuff, what's your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's about expected, really. I think Resident Evil 2 is quite a unique remake because it has the 4 playthroughs, which sort of mask the actual length of the game. Because these classic Resident Evil games they're not meant to be long. They're meant to be fleshed out by their puzzles and everything like that. But not just that, they're meant to be replayable. They've got all these different unlockables which you're able to see, which means that obviously it's kind of like a catalogue. You're like, oh, I want that. How do I get it? Oh, I have to complete the game in under 2 hours, or I have to complete the game without opening the item box, or things like that. And that's something that these old games, that their old hardcore fans enjoy about Resident Evil. So when you're going to remake these older games, that's obviously still going to be present in these remakes, and they are. And I think that because Resident Evil 3 doesn't have these 4 playthroughs, I think that a lot of people who perhaps aren't into the whole replaying the game to try and do it in a certain way or on harder difficulties or whatever, I think that's where it separates the different people who prefer different kinds of games. So I think The Verge put it pretty well, and saying it doesn't mean it's not worth playing, but it does mean you should know what you're getting into. And I think that's the most sensible way to put it. I think Resident Evil, these older Resident Evil titles that have been remade quite faithfully, they are about playing through it the first time and then playing through it again and basically learning the game like the back of your hand, and that's just part of the fun. And yeah, I think that these are all fair reviews. I think it sounds great. I think the positives are very positive, and the negatives are very specific to the kind of gamer you are. If you're not one of those people who wants to play through a game again and again to try and learn the game more, or push yourself to try and do these challenges, then that's fair enough. But yeah, I'm really excited. I'm a huge fan of the originals, so I think that I'll probably enjoy the fact it's short, and I'm a fan of shorter games anyway. With not a lot of time, it's much nicer to play more manageable games. These like 6 to 10 hour titles are perfect for me, and I don't think that value is the same as the length of the game. I'd much rather play a 5 to 6 hour brilliant game for the price of a full price game. I'd rather pay that than a full price for a 100-hour game that's not very good.
I guess I'm bummed that I wish you could pay separately for the Resistance aspect of it, because it's linked to this.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what ends up getting us that full price tag for this thing. So I guess I wouldn't be so bummed with the shorter campaign, if I could just buy the Resident Evil 3 remake and not have to worry about the Resistance, just because I have no interest in playing that. So that does it's a slight annoyance, but and also I guess I'm somewhat turned off at the fact that you don't have that same replayability that you did in the Resident Evil 2 remake. That's what it seems like.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'm still super excited for it. It's just kind of just little bummers along the way, just little bumps. It's just
Sure.
kind of
Yeah.
it's like really.
And I think with the Resident Evil 2, because there are 4 playthroughs, you got the 2 scenarios and the 2 characters. The playthroughs themselves aren't very different, aside from maybe 2 locations.
Right.
So I think that's a good way to. I think that is a good way to trick maybe newcomers to replaying the game, because even if you play Claire's playthrough and then play Leon's playthrough, you're going to remember, or maybe not on your second playthrough, maybe on the third or fourth, you're going to remember how to do all these puzzles, and you're going to remember how you did certain bits, and you're going to feel that satisfaction that comes when you begin to master a game or begin to get good at a game. And I think that was quite well disguised by the 4 playthroughs, because they are very similar. And I think that if again, I understand why people don't think that this may be a right game for them to get, especially for full price. But if people treated it the same as Resident Evil 2, in the way that they just started it again, tried to do it differently, tried to maybe do one of the challenges, I think that they'd enjoy it just as much. But yeah, I think people are more than entitled to choose what they spend their money on, and to decide what is of value to them. And I think that if you don't personally see a 5 to 6 hour game as something you would, 1, play again, or 2, you don't think it's worth your money, then that's completely fair enough. And I think that the reviews reflect that really well. But yeah, me personally, huge Resident Evil fan. I can't wait for it. The only thing that because I've watched a few reviews. I watched Jim Sterling's review of it, because he's a big old school Resident Evil fan, so I like to watch his takes on them. I enjoyed his Resident Evil 2 review as well. But he loves it, and he said that his only gripe, well, he said that the gripe he hears is that Nemesis is now only comes up in scripted boss fights.
I've been hearing, they kind of teased Nemesis to be like, no matter what, he's coming out of the walls, he's always kind of chasing you, but I guess he's a bit more limited.
Yeah, and from a perspective of playing the game, I'm quite pleased about that, because that would terrify me if he chased you throughout the whole game. But a huge gripe that people had with the original was that Nemesis was really annoying, because he wouldn't leave you alone.
Gotcha.
Because he is so powerful, and Jim Sterling even refers to him as, he said, he didn't want to say too much, but he said there are points where it feels like a Dark Souls game, because Nemesis is just that unfair and that overpowered.
Gotcha.
And I think that's why people didn't really like the original, because he was similarly overpowered then, but he would chase you so much in that game, where it would get annoying because you're just trying to do a puzzle, or you're just trying to do something, and Nemesis shows up. So I think again that's kind of a contradiction in a way from some people, because on the original they wished he wasn't there so much, and now with the remake they wish he was there all the time.
Right.
So I think that's maybe one of those decisions that Capcom made that maybe you didn't know you wanted, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So perhaps originally they had it that he chased you like in the original, but the play testing showed that it was super annoying and would sort of put people off or whatever. So I think that sounds to me like it was a decision made for our sake, rather than because we don't always know best.
No, yeah, that's 100% true. I feel like you could then allocate that to a difficulty setting. Hey, you've beat the game, now try it with Nemesis on your back the entire time. Let the player choose, I guess, when they want to kind of do that thing.
Yeah. Well, I've seen actually there's an extra difficulty as well, because Resident Evil 2 went up to hardcore, and this one has an extra difficulty.
Okay.
Which is interesting. And I've seen as well that there's challenges. So for example, it'll be get 150 kills with the shotgun, and it will get you these points, and then you can spend these points on things that will upgrade your overall health, upgrade certain things. And they also buy the classic, infinite weapons. So you can get the infinite rocket launcher, the infinite knife, or the infinite handgun.
Gotcha.
Whatever. So there's kind of this arcadey challenge aspect to it as well, which I think adds, a different kind of replayability to it as well, for people who enjoy that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I'm still super stoked for it. I can't wait to play it. I'm looking at footage now. It's just such a beautiful engine, man, they're really nailing it, and I'm hoping
it's so disgusting, but in a good
right.
way.
Right. No, they nail everything about it. So I mean, I trust them, and I can't wait to play it.
Yeah, I'll definitely be getting it tomorrow, and hopefully if I get the time, I'll finish it tomorrow as well, and then I can get cracking on the challenges, because the next Friday is when Final Fantasy VII's out, so I'm hoping to get to a point of Resident Evil 3 by then where I'm ready to move on to something else. So it's going to be a good couple of weeks.
Well, we've all got the time now, so now there's no excuse.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe not the money, but we got the time.